The healing process was unlike anything the twins had experienced before. Luna crushed herbs between her palms, while singing in the old language. The melody was soft and haunting, making the crystals in the cave pulse with light. She mixed the crushed herbs with 3 drops of dragon tears that Frost provided willingly. The blue dragon seemed to understand these strangers needed help. Zix watched every movement Luna made with his 4 eyes, recording it all on a small device that projected images. In the air, Chin was more interested in the dragons who had settled around the cave to watch the proceedings. Ember had brought them fruit from the forest, placing it near the twins with her mouth. Storm remained alert, but no longer seemed hostile. Luna applied the healing paste to their wounds, and the twins gasped as they felt it working immediately. Their purple blood stopped flowing and the cuts began to close. They looked at each other in amazement, then back at Luna with something like reverence. In their large eyes, she smiled and continued her work, adding a few drops of sacred water to complete the healing. Through their mental link, the twins shared more about themselves. They were scientists and explorers who had been traveling for 3 years. Their mission was to find new life forms and establish peaceful contact. This was their first time encountering what they called magic, though Luna did not fully understand what they meant. Everything she did seemed normal to her. As night fell, Luna prepared food for her guests. She cooked vegetables from her garden and bread made from grain that grew wild on the mountain. The twins ate carefully, using 2 of their 4 arms, while the other 2 remained still. They told her through thoughts that her food was unlike anything in their database, but they enjoyed it very much. The dragons ate their own meal of fish and meat that Luna had preserved with salt and magic. Ember showed off by breathing small flames to cook her portion just the way she liked it. Frost preferred hers raw and frozen. Storm ate quietly while keeping one eye on the twins at all times. Dragons were protective creatures by nature, and these were the first visitors they had ever seen. After dinner, Luna showed the twins where they could sleep. She had extra rooms carved into the mountain that had once belonged to other elves. The beds were made of soft moss that stayed fresh through magic. The blankets were woven from moonbeams and starlight. They would keep the twins warm no matter how cold the night became, but the twins were too excited to sleep. They wanted to learn everything about Luna and her world. They showed her images from their device of the worlds they had visited, cities that floated in gas giant atmospheres, beings made of pure energy who lived in stars, ocean worlds where all life existed underwater. Luna watched in fascination, having never imagined such diversity existed. In return, Luna told them about her people and why she stayed. Behind, she showed them books written in the elf language that contained the history of her race going back 50,000 years. She demonstrated small magics like making water flow upward or causing plants to grow instantly. The twins recorded everything, asking questions through their mental link. They were particularly interested in the dragons. Luna explained how she had found 3 eggs in an ancient temple when she was young. The temple had been abandoned for 1,000 years, but the eggs were preserved by powerful magic. She had taken them home and cared for them until they hatched. The babies had imprinted on her, immediately seeing her as their mother. Over the decades, the dragons had grown and learned. They were intelligent beings who could understand complex ideas. They could not speak with words but communicated through emotions, sounds, and mental images. Luna and her dragons were bonded at a level deeper than the twins could measure with their technology. It was magic and love combined. Zix asked through the mental link if there were others like her. Luna shook her head sadly and explained she was the last. Her people had found a way to transcend physical existence, but she had chosen to remain. She was the guardian of their sacred sites and the keeper of their knowledge. When she died, all of this would be lost unless she found someone to pass it on to. Kin seemed troubled by this information. He communicated with his brother in their own language, which sounded like musical notes to Luna. They turned back to her and shared an idea. What if they could help her preserve her knowledge? Their alliance had vast libraries and museums. Her culture could be saved for all time. Luna had never considered this possibility. The next morning, the twins examined their ship with Luna and the dragons accompanying them. The damage was worse than they had thought. The engine core was completely destroyed and several critical systems were fried. They would need rescue from their people, but their emergency beacon would take days to reach the nearest Alliance outpost. Luna offered to let them stay as long as they needed. The twins were grateful and decided to use this time to learn as much as possible about her world. They set up their scientific equipment and began taking readings of everything: the magic, the dragons, the plant life, and even Luna herself, with her permission. The dragons slowly warmed up to the twins. Ember was the first to approach them, directly sniffing at their equipment with curiosity. When Chin offered her a piece of fruit, she accepted it gracefully. Frost allowed them to examine her ice breath, though their instruments could not explain how she produced it. Storm maintained her distance but no longer growled when they moved. Days passed in this way, with the twins learning about magic and Luna learning about the greater universe. They told her about the thousands of species that lived in harmony across the galaxy. There were wars sometimes, but the Alliance worked hard to maintain peace. They had rules about protecting primitive worlds and preserving unique cultures. Luna demonstrated more complex magic for them. She showed them how to use crystals to store memories and emotions. She taught them the basics of speaking to plants, though they could not do it themselves without magical ability. She even let them watch as she performed a ritual to bless the forest, ensuring good growth for the season. The twins shared their technology with her, showing her how their devices worked. They had translators that could learn any language in hours. They had medical scanners that could detect illness before symptoms appeared. They had communication devices that could send messages across light years instantly. Luna found it all fascinating, though she still preferred her magical methods. On the 5th day, a signal came through the twins' communication device. Their rescue ship had received the distress call and would arrive in 3 days. The twins looked at each other with expressions Luna had learned meant sadness. They had grown attached to this place and to her. They did not want their time here to end so soon. Luna felt the same way. She had been alone for so long that having company was strange but wonderful. The twins were respectful and curious, never demanding or rude. They treated her magic with the same respect she showed their technology, and they had become friends despite being from completely different worlds. That evening, Zix asked Luna a question that changed everything. Would she consider coming with them? They could visit just to see the Alliance and meet other species. She could return whenever she wanted. They would make sure she was safe and comfortable. The dragons could come too if she wished. Their ship had space for them all. Luna had never considered leaving her world before. Her duty was here, protecting the sacred sites and keeping her people's memory alive. But the twins had shown her that there was so much more out there. Thousands of worlds with millions of stories. She could learn so much, and maybe find a way to better preserve her culture. The dragons sensed her inner conflict through their bond. Ember nuzzled against her leg, offering comfort. Frost made soft, singing sounds that always calmed Luna. Storm surprisingly seemed interested in the idea. Her black eyes looked at the stars visible through the cave entrance as if imagining flying among them. Luna asked for time to think about it. The twins understood and did not pressure her. They spent the next day showing her more about what her journey would be like. They showed her images of the Alliance capital station where beings from every member world gathered. It was a place of learning and sharing, where cultures mixed freely. They told her about the protection she would have as a newly contacted species representative. Her culture would be registered and protected. No one could exploit her knowledge or force her to share her magic. She would be an ambassador, teaching others about her people while learning about theirs. That night, Luna walked alone to the highest peak of the mountain where an ancient stone circle stood. This was where her people had performed the ritual to ascend. She sat in the center and meditated, asking the spirits of her ancestors for guidance. The wind whispered through the stones but gave no clear answer. When she returned, the dragons were waiting for her. They communicated through their bond, showing her their thoughts. Ember was excited about the adventure and meeting new friends. Frost was curious about other worlds and what magic might exist there. Storm wanted to protect Luna wherever she went, but also seemed eager to test herself against new challenges. The next morning, Luna made her decision. She would go with the twins, but only for 1 year. She would establish contact between her world and the Alliance, then return to continue her duties. The twins were overjoyed and immediately began making preparations. They sent messages to their ship about the special passengers they would be bringing. They spent their last full day on the mountain gathering things Luna wanted to bring. She packed several ancient books and crystals that contained thousands of years of elven history. She collected seeds from her garden and samples of herbs that grew nowhere else. The twins helped her carefully store everything in containers that would preserve them perfectly. The dragons prepared too in their own way. Ember gathered her favorite rocks that she liked to heat and play. With Frost created several ice sculptures that Luna preserved with magic to take along. Storm patrolled the borders of their territory one last time, making sure everything was secure for their absence. On the morning of the rescue ship's arrival, Luna performed one last ritual. She sealed the caves with protective magic that would keep them safe until her return. She blessed the forest and streams, asking them to thrive while she was gone. She left offerings at the sacred sites, thanking them for centuries of shelter. The rescue ship was enormous compared to the crashed vessel. It descended slowly, its engines humming with controlled power. A landing ramp extended and several beings emerged. Luna had never seen such diversity. There were creatures made of rock and others that seemed to be living plants. Some had tentacles instead of arms and others floated without touching the ground. The captain was a crystalline being whose body refracted light into rainbow patterns when it spoke. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. It welcomed Luna, formally reading from a first contact protocol that the twins had helped prepare. It assured her that she and her dragons would be treated with the utmost respect. Loading the dragons onto the ship required special arrangements. A large cargo hold was converted into a habitat for them with simulated mountain terrain and a small stream. The temperature could be adjusted for each dragon's preference. Ember got a warm volcanic section. Frost had a frozen area, and Storm had high perches from which to observe. Luna was given quarters near the dragons so she could visit them easily. The room was larger than any cave chamber with windows that would show the stars once they left atmosphere. The twins had made sure she had everything she might need, including a collection of plants from her world to make her feel at home. As the ship prepared to leave, Luna stood in the observation deck with the twins on either side. She watched her purple world grow smaller below 3 moons hung in the sky like guardians. She touched the glass window and whispered a promise to return. The twins each placed 2 hands on her shoulders, in a gesture they had explained meant friendship and support. The dragons were surprisingly calm during takeoff. Ember watched through a viewport in their habitat, fascinated by the clouds rushing past. Frost created ice patterns on her wall that looked like star maps. Storm stood steady, feeling the ship vibrate, with power unlike anything she had experienced. Once they reached space, Luna gasped at the sight. Her world was a purple and green jewel floating in the void. The 3 moons orbited peacefully, and the binary suns cast golden light across everything. She had never imagined she would see her home from such a distance. It was beautiful and precious. The captain announced their first destination would be the Alliance Council Station. It would take 5 days to reach, traveling faster than light using technology Luna could not understand. She would be registered as an ambassador and given official status. Her safety and rights would be guaranteed by Alliance law. The journey through space was unlike anything Luna had imagined. The ship moved faster than light using something the crew called a jump drive, but to Luna, it felt like passing through a dream. The stars outside became streams of light and she could feel the magic in her bones responding to forces she did not understand. During the 5 days of travel, Luna became a celebrity on the ship. Every crew member wanted to meet the first elf ever encountered by the Alliance. They came to her quarters at scheduled times, bringing gifts from their worlds and asking questions about magic. Some species could sense the power within her, while others relied on instruments that went crazy in her presence. The dragons adapted quickly to space travel. Ember discovered she loved the zero-gravity chamber where she could float and breathe fire in perfect spheres. Frost found that her ice powers worked differently in the controlled environment of the ship, creating structures impossible on a planet storm. enjoyed the observation decks where she could watch the cosmos pass by. Zix and Chin became her official guides and translators. They helped her understand the complex social rules of the Alliance and prepared her for the council meeting. They taught her basic phrases in the common trade language, though her magical nature allowed her to understand intentions beyond words. The twins also learned from her. Every day, Luna taught them meditation techniques that helped them sense the energy flows around them. While they could not use magic themselves, they could feel it when Luna performed spells. They documented everything, believing that understanding magic could revolutionize their science. On the third day, an incident occurred that proved Luna's value to the ship. A young crew member from a silicon-based species became ill with a condition their medical technology could not diagnose. Luna sensed the problem immediately. The being's crystalline structure was misaligned, disrupting its life force. With permission, she used a combination of sound magic and crystal resonance to heal it. The medical officer, a tentacled being from an ocean world, was amazed. Their scanners showed the patient completely healed but could not explain how. Luna had done it. This event spread through the ship, and soon Luna had requests for healing from dozens of crew members with chronic conditions their technology could not cure. Luna helped where she could, but was careful not to exhaust herself. Some conditions were beyond her magic, and she had to explain that she was not all-powerful. The crew respected her limits and were grateful for any help she could provide. Several species began discussing how magic might be incorporated into their medical practices. The dragons also proved their worth. Storm detected a small breach in the hull 2 days before the ship's sensors would have found it. Her supernatural senses felt the tiny change in air pressure. Luna alerted the captain, and repairs were made, preventing what could have been a dangerous situation. When they finally arrived at the Alliance Council station, Luna was overwhelmed by its size. The structure was larger than a moon, with sections designed for every member species. There were areas filled with water for aquatic beings, chambers with methane atmospheres for others, and zero-gravity zones for creatures that never evolved to walk. The station orbited a neutron star whose intense magnetic field powered the entire structure. Millions of beings lived and worked here, making it the diplomatic center of known spaceships from thousands of worlds docked constantly, bringing trade goods, information, and visitors. Luna and her dragons were given special accommodations in the diplomatic quarter. The suite was designed to accommodate new species with adaptable environments. Luna worked with the staff to create something like her mountain home, complete with crystal formations and flowing water. The dragons had a large, open space where they could fly freely. The council meeting was scheduled for the next day, but first Luna had to go through orientation. She met with representatives from the Cultural Preservation Department, who explained how her knowledge would be protected and preserved. They showed her the vast digital libraries where the histories of 10,000 species were stored. She also met with the Security Council, who assessed any potential threats. Her magic was powerful, but she assured them she had no hostile intentions toward the Alliance. They tested her abilities in controlled environments and were satisfied that she posed no danger. The dragons were also evaluated and classified as sentient companions, rather than dangerous animals. That evening, the twins took Luna to see the station's promenade, a vast marketplace where goods from every corner of the galaxy were traded. She saw technologies that looked like magic, and actual magic from a few species who had developed it differently than her people. She bought a translation amulet from a psychic species that would help her communicate better. The dragons attracted attention wherever they went. Many species had legends of similar creatures, but none had ever seen real dragons. Ember enjoyed the attention, preening and showing off her fire breath in safe demonstration areas. Frost created ice sculptures for delighted children of various species. Storm remained dignified but allowed respectful observers to approach. The next morning, Luna dressed in her finest robes made from starlight silk and moonbeams. The twins escorted her to the council chamber, a vast spherical room that could adjust its gravity and atmosphere for different sections. Representatives from 143 species were present, either in person or through holographic projection. Luna was introduced by the council speaker, a being of pure energy who existed as living plasma. Her story was told how the twins had crashed on her world and discovered the last elf guarding ancient knowledge. The council listened with interest as she demonstrated simple magic, making flowers bloom from seeds in her hand. Several species had questions about her magic, and whether it could be taught. Luna explained that magic required an innate connection to the life force of the universe. Some beings might develop it, but most could not. She offered to work with their scientists to better understand the principles behind her abilities. The council voted unanimously to grant Luna full ambassador status with all rights and protections. Her world would be marked as protected with no unauthorized visits allowed. She was given a communication device that would let her contact the council from anywhere in the galaxy. Her dragons were registered as her official companions with the same protections. After the meeting, Luna was approached by representatives from various organizations. The Scientific Institute wanted her to lecture about magic. The Medical Association hoped she would share healing techniques. The Cultural Museum requested artifacts and demonstrations. Everyone wanted something from the last elf. But Luna was most interested in the offer from the Exploration Guild they proposed. A tour of significant worlds where she could learn about other cultures while sharing her own. It would last 6 months with the twins as her guides. She could choose which worlds to visit and how long to stay. The dragons would be welcome everywhere. The tour of the Alliance worlds began 2 weeks after the council meeting. Luna chose to visit 7 different planets, each representing a unique approach to existence. The twins had helped her select worlds that would be both educational and welcoming to someone new to space travel. Their first stop was Aquarius Prime, a world covered entirely in ocean. The inhabitants were dolphin-like beings who had developed technology without ever discovering fire. They built cities from grown coral and used bioluminescent organisms for light. Luna and her dragons traveled in a specially designed underwater vessel, experiencing a world where up and down had different meanings. The dragons surprised everyone by adapting to water easily. Ember discovered her fire worked underwater, creating bubbles of superheated steam. Frost could freeze sections of water into beautiful sculptures. Storm could generate electrical pulses that the local beings used for communication. They spent 3 weeks there learning about harmony with nature. The second world was Mechanicus 7, where artificial intelligence had evolved beyond their creators. The original organic species had uploaded their consciousness into machines centuries ago. Luna found it strange talking to beings who existed as code, but she recognized the spark of life within them, even if it was different from biological life. Here Luna learned that magic and technology were not opposites, but different expressions of manipulating reality. The mechanical beings were fascinated by her magic because it operated on principles their science could not fully explain. They offered to create technological versions of some of her spells, which Luna found both amusing and impressive. The third stop was at the Garden Worlds, a collection of 3 planets terraformed by an ancient species who had vanished. These worlds were maintained by various Alliance members as botanical preserves. Luna felt at home among the endless forests and taught the caretakers elven techniques for encouraging plant growth. The dragons loved these worlds most of all. Ember found volcanic hot springs to bathe in frost, discovered ice caves filled with frozen waterfalls. Storm claimed a mountain peak as her temporary territory. They spent 2 months here with Luna, documenting thousands of plant species and sharing her knowledge of botanical magic. On the 4th world Luna encountered tragedy. New Paradise had recently survived a plague that killed half its population. The survivors were struggling to rebuild. Luna spent 6 weeks there using her healing magic to help the sick and teaching their doctors about herbal remedies. The dragons helped too, with Frost creating clean ice for water and Ember providing warmth for those who were cold. This experience changed Luna. She realized her magic was not just about preserving the past, but could help shape the future. She began keeping detailed notes about every healing she performed, hoping to find patterns that others could learn from even without magic. The 5th world was Unity Station, not technically a planet but a massive space station, where multiple species lived together in an experiment of cooperation. Luna learned about compromise and coexistence, watching beings with completely different needs share the same space. She gave lectures about elven philosophy which emphasized balance and harmony. Here she met a young human girl named Amy, who had a natural sensitivity to magic. Luna spent extra time with her, teaching her basic meditation and energy sensing techniques. It gave her hope that magic was not completely lost to the universe, even if the elves were gone. The sixth world was Crystal Prime, where silicon-based life forms lived in cities of living crystal. They perceived reality through vibrations and resonance, making them naturally attuned to the musical aspects of magic. Luna learned their language of harmonics and taught them elven songs that could shape crystal growth. Dragons formed an unexpected friendship with these beings. Storm in particular found their electromagnetic communications fascinating. She learned to modulate her electrical abilities to speak with them directly. This breakthrough led to new understanding between organic and silicon-based life. The final world was Horizon End, a planet at the edge of Alliance space where explorers prepared for journeys into the unknown. Here Luna met beings who reminded her of herself, guardians of knowledge and seekers of truth. They were building an arc ship that would travel for generations seeking new life. Luna contributed to their library, copying all her books and memories into their quantum storage devices. She taught them preservation spells that would keep their food fresh for centuries. The dragons demonstrated their abilities, which were recorded for future generations to study. Throughout the tour, the twins remained her constant companions. They had become more than guides. They were true friends, who understood her in ways she had not expected. They learned to sense magic even if they could not use it. And Luna learned to appreciate technology as another form of magic. As the tour ended, Luna faced a decision. Her year was almost up, and she had promised to return home. But the Alliance offered her a permanent position as a cultural ambassador. She could have a home on the council station and travel whenever she wished. The dragons would be welcome anywhere she went. Luna spent days meditating on this choice. She walked through the station's gardens where plants from her world now grew alongside species from across the galaxy. She watched her dragons playing with young beings of various species, teaching them courage and kindness. She thought about Amy and the other beings who showed potential for magic. The twins found her sitting by an artificial stream that reminded her of home. They sat beside her in comfortable silence, understanding her struggle. Finally, Chin asked what her heart told her. Luna smiled and said her heart was divided between duty and possibility, between the past and the future. Zix suggested a compromise. What if she spent half of each year at home and half among the stars? She could maintain her guardianship while also being part of the greater community. The Alliance would provide transportation and communication devices to stay connected. Luna realized this was the answer she had been looking for. When they returned to Kepler 442b, Luna saw her world. With new eyes, it was still beautiful and precious, but no longer felt like a prison. The caves welcomed her back and the forests sang with joy at her return. But now she also had a communicator that connected her to friends across the galaxy. The dragons were different too. They had grown not in size but in understanding. Ember had learned patience from the machine beings. Frost had learned joy from the water dwellers. Storm had learned that protecting did not always mean fighting. They were no longer just mountain dragons but cosmic beings. Luna began preparing for her next journey, while also tending to her duties at home. She documented every sacred site with Alliance technology, ensuring they would be preserved even after she was gone. She planted new gardens with seeds from other worlds, creating a bridge between her past and the universe's future. The twins visited regularly, bringing news and supplies. They helped her build a small landing pad hidden in the valley. Their friendship had become one of the most important things in her life. She was no longer the last elf alone on a mountain, but part of something infinite and growing. 1 year later, Luna stood at the same spot where she had first seen the twins' ship crash. The valley had healed and new flowers grew where the ship had burned the ground. But now she was waiting for a ship to arrive, not watching one fall. She wore robes that combined elven tradition with fabric from 7 different worlds. The dragons stood with her, ready for their next adventure. They had learned that home was not just a place but the beings you chose to share your life with. As the Alliance ship descended, Luna smiled, knowing that her story was not ending, but transforming into something greater than she had ever imagined. Luna had lived alone on the mountain for 200 years after her people left for the higher realm. She was the last elf on Kepler 442b, and she had chosen this life. Her only companions were 3 dragons she had raised from eggs found in the ancient ruins. Ember was red like fire and loved to play. Frost was blue like ice and preferred quiet moments. Storm was black like night and protected them all fiercely. The mountain was perfect for someone who wanted to be alone. It had caves filled with glowing crystals that provided light and warmth. There were pools of sacred water that never froze even in winter. The forest below was full of fruit trees and medicinal herbs. Everything Luna needed was here. She had books from her people and could practice magic without anyone watching. Every morning Luna would wake before the 3 suns rose. She would feed her dragons fresh fish from the stream that ran through the main cave. Then she would practice her magic making flowers bloom in winter or turning water into healing potions. The dragons would watch her with intelligent eyes, understanding every spell she cast. They were not ordinary dragons, but magical beings who had bonded with her soul on this particular morning. Luna decided to bathe in the sacred pools. The water there had special properties that kept her young and healthy even after 2 centuries. She removed her robes, made from starlight silk, and stepped into the warm water. Her long silver hair floated around her, like a cloud. The dragons stayed outside the bathing chamber, giving her privacy as they always did. The water glowed softly blue as she relaxed, letting the magic seep into her skin. She thought about her people who had ascended 5 years ago. They had discovered a way to become beings of pure energy and live forever in another dimension. They had asked her to come, but Luna had refused. Someone needed to guard their sacred sites and keep their history alive. She was that guardian. Suddenly, a terrible sound shook the mountain. It was like thunder, but louder and longer. The water in the pool splashed violently. Luna jumped up immediately, knowing something was wrong. The dragons roared outside, and she could feel their alarm through their mental bond. She grabbed her robes quickly, pulling them on while still dripping wet, running through the caves. Luna followed the sounds of her dragons. They were at the entrance, looking up at the sky. A silver ship was falling from the purple clouds, trailing smoke and fire. It was not like any ship Luna had seen in her ancient books. This was alien technology from another world. The ship crashed into the valley below with an explosion that made the ground shake. Luna grabbed her staff, a piece of wood from the first tree ever grown on this world. She ran down the mountain path with her dragons flying above her. Their wings cast shadows on the ground as they circled protectively. They could sense her worry and were ready to fight whatever emerged from that crashed ship. The ship was larger up close, about the size of her entire cave system. It was made of a metal she did not recognize, with symbols carved into its surface that glowed faintly green. Smoke poured from several holes in its hull. A door on the side was trying to open but seemed stuck. Luna approached carefully, her staff glowing with defensive magic. Finally, the door burst open and 2 figures stumbled out. They were identical in appearance, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Each had 4 arms and large black eyes that took up half their faces. They wore matching uniforms of a material that shifted colors as they moved. Both were injured, with dark purple blood dripping from cuts on their bodies. The twins saw Luna and stopped moving completely. Their large eyes grew even wider as they stared at her. She knew she must look strange to them, with her pointed ears, silver hair, and the 3 dragons now landing behind her with loud thuds. But they did not seem afraid, only amazed, as if they were seeing something from a dream. Luna felt their minds trying to connect with hers. It was different from the mental bond she shared with her dragons. This was more deliberate, like someone knocking on a door. She lowered her mental shield slightly, allowing them to communicate. The first twin sent thoughts of peace and apology. They had not meant to crash here. Their ship had malfunctioned during a patrol. The second twin added more details through the mental link. They were explorers from a galactic alliance that spanned thousands of worlds. They had been mapping this sector when their engine failed. They meant no harm and only wanted help. Luna could feel the truth in their thoughts. These beings were not conquerors or threats. They were lost travelers in need. She lowered her staff and spoke in the ancient language of her people, knowing they would not understand the words, but hoping they would understand the tone of welcome. The dragons relaxed slightly, though Storm kept watching the twins with suspicious eyes. Amber made a small chirping sound that meant she was curious. Frost tilted her head, studying the newcomers with interest. The first twin pointed to himself and thought the word Zix very clearly. The second did the same with the name Chin Luna. Understood they were sharing their names. She pointed to herself and said Luna out loud while also thinking it clearly for their mental connection. They nodded, showing they understood Luna, gestured for them to follow her back up the mountain path. The twins looked at each other, communicating silently in a way only they could understand. Then they began walking behind her. Their movements were graceful, despite their injuries, and they seemed to glide rather than walk. The dragons flew overhead, keeping watch as the strange group made their way to the caves. Inside, the main cave, the twins looked around in wonder. The glowing crystals cast rainbow patterns on the walls. Ancient books floated on shelves made of solid light. Herbs hung from the ceiling, drying in the warm air. A fire burned in a pit that needed no wood, perpetually fueled by magic. The twins had clearly never seen anything like this before. Luna guided them to a section of the cave she used for healing. She had them sit on cushions made from cloud silk while she gathered her supplies.